I know that you've been in a war of words of sorts, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, with James Lindsay. And I just had James on my podcast, and we talked about the danger of psychopaths to the world, really, but to the political most particularly. The hypothesis basically being that there is 3 to 5% of the population that's essentially psychopathic, and they gravitate to wherever the power is and utilize it. That can be on the religious front, like the Ayatollahs in Iran, or the Islamists in general, or the false Protestant preachers, for example, that do it for no other reason than to aggrandize themselves. But it also occurs in the political realm. Many of the so-called agitators on the left side, they're just psychopaths using the naivety of young women, for example, for their own purposes. And I'm seeing some of that also emerging more clearly on the right, especially in the form of a particularly pernicious kind of anti-Semitism. And James and I talked about that, and I understand that in the aftermath of that, and perhaps not directly as a consequence of the podcast, you and James have been exchanging words, and I'm kind of curious about that. Do you want to lay that out a bit and tell me what's going on?
Yeah, sure. And I have no issue with James Lindsay. I don't know him. I know of him. Never had any real problem with him. It started with this conversation about I believe it started with the Shiloh Hendricks case, and she was, for anyone who's not familiar, she was the white mom at a park in Rochester, Minnesota, who, as the story goes, there was a black child who supposedly was 5 years old, I think was probably older, stealing something from her purse. Allegedly, she said the N-word to him or around him. That was not clear. She's confronted by a Somalian guy who is not related to the child, who starts shaming her on camera, pulls out his phone, shames her. She repeats the N-word to him defiantly, and then he follows her to her car and says, "I'm going to put this on the internet. I'm going to make you famous." This is just background. I think a little bit of that background necessary to get into it. And then at first, this story with this video, and there are things about the story that are very strange. Where were the kids' parents? We still haven't heard from the kids' parents. What's that all about? This Somalian man had been arrested in the past, been arrested for sexual abuse of minors in the past. He's at this playground.
Oh, he sounds fun.
Right. And so there's a lot of things about it. They're claiming he's 5 years old. We see a glimpse of the kid, I think, on camera. He does not look 5. Strange things. So he is an older kid. He's at a playground, no parents, stealing from a purse, allegedly. Like, what's going on there? A lot of strange things about it, but that we still don't have clarity on. Initially, this video gets out, and it follows the trajectory that we're used to with cancel culture, where the mob descends. And it's like I said earlier, the mob, they're not angry at her. There's this sadistic pleasure in, okay, we're going to make this woman famous, and we're going to ruin her life. And so they put her address out. They put her social security number out. They put out where she worked, her phone number. People are calling her, death threats. There are people posting TikToks threatening to assault not just her, but her 1-year-old baby that she had with her. So just...
Right. There come the psychopaths, right. The people who are keying Teslas, exactly. Resentful to the core, exactly. Cowardly beyond comprehension, perfectly... Yeah.
This psychotic scene that we've seen so many times. This story, though, takes an interesting turn, because usually what happens in this case, somebody's caught on camera doing or saying something offensive or rude. And yes, saying a racial slur to a child you shouldn't do that. It's bad. Obviously, I would never do it. Most people wouldn't. But usually what happens is they're caught on camera. There's this grotesquely disproportionate response, because even if you shouldn't say a racial slur in a moment of anger, somebody stealing from your purse, obviously you shouldn't say it. Does that mean that your life should be ruined, that you should have to move because of this? Obviously not. And so what usually happens is that the person who's the target of the cancel culture comes out tearfully begging for mercy, which they won't get, by the way. They never do. In this case, the woman doesn't do that. Instead, she doubles down and refuses to apologize. She posts a GoFundMe or a Give, Send, Go. And a separate kind of group forms to support her and donate her. And she ends up raising like $700,000 that people are giving money to her. Now,
Oh my God.
So this
oh my God.
This becomes obviously a big controversy online. I didn't weigh in for the first couple of days. It was over the weekend. I'm with my kids. I try not to use Twitter on the weekend. I come back on Monday, this past Monday, and I give kind of my take on it. And my take, which not everyone's going to agree with, you might not agree with it, or maybe you do, I'm not sure. But my take is, look, she shouldn't have used the word, but I am glad that she raised all this money. And the reason that I'm glad is because two reasons mainly. Well, three. The first is that she actually needs it. Like I don't think that her family's life should be threatened over this. And you need to like move now because of this. And so she actually does need the money. But more importantly, this is a rebuke of cancel culture. That's what this really is. This is not, now it would be different, okay? It would be different if she posted the video herself. Like if she did this and was proud of it and posted it and was bragging about it, that would be one thing. Because then the reaction is not really cancel culture. But that's not what happened. This is a third party saying, we're going to ruin this woman's life, not because we're angry, but because we just enjoy it. And so,
to get clicks and attention, right, and so to be a moralizer. Yeah.
In this case, there was a separate group that stood up and said, you know what? We're not going to do that this time because we're sick of this. We've been through 15 years of this kind of mob justice, and we're not going to do it anymore. The only way to stop it, this is my case, this is my argument anyway, is to disincentivize the mob. The mob's tactic is, this is their slogan. They said it about this woman, Shiloh. We're going to make her famous. Let's make her famous. And the assumption is that if we make her famous, it will ruin her life. The only way to stop this is if the mob knows that if you make her famous, it might not ruin her life. In fact, it might help her. And so now there's some disincentive to pursue this kind of pitchfork mob justice. And so I saw that as a rebuke of cancel culture. And then secondarily, there's also the other issue that there is just, let's face it, a really absurd racial double standard here, in that she said a bad word, she shouldn't have said it. It's also a word that in the Black community, they use all the time. I mean, this kid probably hears the word 10,000 times a day. And so there's this idea that like, okay, if your skin looks a certain way, you can say this word whenever you want. If your skin doesn't look that way, if you say it, it's so bad, we're going to ruin your entire life. And that's there have been words in the past. Obviously, there are words that are taboo. This is a kind of taboo.
But that's about the only one that's left that's really taboo. But all the curse words have lost that, but that one hasn't.
But it's not just the taboo. A taboo word is one thing. I agree that a racial slur should be taboo. I'm not going to use it. Vulgarity should be taboo. I try not to use vulgarity. But this is a taboo that only applies to one group, and then you have another group that it doesn't apply to them at all. And I'm not aware of anything quite like that. I'm not aware of a precedent in any language in human history where there's a word that if one group says it, you can kill them. But if another group says it, it's just a greeting. And like,
right. Yeah. Well, the acceptance of that taboo, if you're white and part of the oppressor class, let's say, acceptance of that taboo and justification of it is compliance with the oppressed narrative and a proclamation of your culpability as essentially morally equivalent to a slaver. So it is a really big problem. It's a really big problem, right? It's not trivial.
If you've listened to us for a while, you know our stance on fluoridation. Today, more than 70% of the U.S. population has fluoride added to their water sources. That is a violation of personal rights, plain and simple. On the Jordan Peterson podcast, you've heard how governments have no problem with mass medicating their populations without consent. On this show, we refuse to drink compromised water. That's why we use Cove Pure. Cove Pure is a countertop reverse osmosis system that filters your water in 4 stages, stripping away fluoride, contaminants, and the arrogance of bureaucrats who think they know what's best for you. Their clear wave reverse osmosis technology is lab certified to remove up to 99% of impurities, leaving you with only the purest water possible. And unlike the government, Cove Pure lets you have your water exactly the way you want it. It has a simple touchscreen that lets you choose the exact amount or temperature that you want. Hot, cold, warm, whatever. Cove Pure does it all instantly with the tap of a button. Not only does it look amazing, the best part is that there's no need to drill into pipes or call a plumber. You just set up Cove Pure right on your countertop, fill it up with water, and plug it in. Your health shouldn't come at the cost of your autonomy. Purify your water today with the same system that Jordan uses. And because we've partnered with Cove Pure, you'll get $200 off if you use our link in the description box, covepure.com/Jordan.
Yeah. So, and that's how I see it. I see it as a big problem. I see this, what happened with this story, as a repudiation of both cancel culture and the racial double standard. It's ugly. You know, as I said when I gave my initial take on it, you wish that she had done something that we could affirmatively defend, like we could defend the action itself. And in this case, we can't and we don't. And yet still, I think that the response was justified and necessary. And as I said at the time, you know, these are ugly things. The racial double standard, the victim oppressor narrative, the cancel culture, it's an ugly thing. Ugly things die ugly deaths. And there's no other way around it. So anyway, so that's a long setup. That was my take on it. And James Lindsay did not like my take. And he responded initially. I did a 20-minute monologue about it. I think his initial response was like a clown emoji or something. Obviously not engaging with my argument, not taking it seriously, but still commenting on it. I don't really appreciate that. I find it's just not helpful. You know, like if you're not interested in what I have to say, that's fine.
Yeah, well, your argument is serious. I mean, the counter argument's pretty obvious, which is that she shouldn't be rewarded for her actions. But like both of those arguments stand, you know what I mean? And the question is the nuance in between. Have you thought about talking to Lindsay? I mean, I've found James, you can have a conversation with James, you know, and I'm wondering. Yeah, go ahead.
Here, the problem is that as this conversation started on X, and I'm perfectly willing to talk to him. I think my argument is rational. I think it's the right argument. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making it. But there are, Ben Shapiro disagrees, and he sees it the other way. He did a segment on his show where he directly responds to my argument, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. That's great. Like we can disagree. I got no issue with that. And this is an issue where there's a rational argument on either side. I do think that there's a right argument, but the problem is that James Lindsay, his response was at first dismissive, and then eventually he offers this kind of lengthy semi-rebuttal of part of my argument. But then at the end of it, he says that I'm a fool and a dimwit. And so, once you say that, then it's not possible to have a conversation anymore.
Wait a sec. I don't know, Matt, about that. I mean, because I've been in the thick of so many political arguments, I've had moments of pretty severe dislocation, even with friends, and one of the things I've learned is that, and I'm not trying to lecture you at all, but one of the things I've learned is that, a month of reconsideration and then taking the opportunity to actually talk, that's pretty useful, to take a longer view, because people can be stupid. People are stupid in the moment. And the things that James said about you obviously don't seem to be productive, but it would be good, if the conservative side of things could model a bit more wise, sober second thought, and I like James, and I've had productive conversations with him, and he's a force for good, all things considered. And I would say the same thing about you. And it'd be unfortunate to see unnecessary fractures in a side that's already pushed pretty hard to the wall, So anyways, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to having a conversation. I'll have a conversation with anybody. I think that, and my feelings aren't hurt. People say worse things about me every single day. Like many of us in this space, we hear it all the time. It's just that it's not, and you can think that I'm a fool and a dimwit. Maybe I am, maybe I am. But if that's your view of it, then it's hard to have a productive conversation because you're going into it saying, well, I don't take your ideas seriously. So then, okay, well, I don't know how I can offer my ideas to you if you don't take them seriously. I'm not sure how we can have a conversation. But if you were to, it doesn't mean that a conversation is not possible. And I do think that there's certainly a conversation here worth having, not just about the Shiloh Hendricks case itself, but I know that, James Lindsay has been, and others have been on kind of this crusade recently about what they call the woke right. And And I think that there's a discussion to be had there too, because I think that, my take on it is, I think the label is at a minimum not useful at all. It's not a useful label. Nobody can really even explain what it is exactly. There are, I've asked people over the last week, what does this even mean? I've gotten 10 different answers, which tells you, that's what tells you that you've come up with a term or a label that's not useful, is when no one is very clear on what it actually is.